From time to time, we've been able to make you a member of the audience, so to speak, at some very interesting presentations, such as the State of the Company and Board of Directors meetings. In the winter of 1986, Chick Shue and Grace Hopper were among the distinguished keynote speakers at Internal IDECUS, held in Marlborough, Massachusetts. We're going to bring you the major portions of their presentations during the next hour and a half. The first person you'll hear is Grace Hopper, retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral who began a new career at age 79 as a senior consultant with Digital. Her duties include representing Digital at industry forums and symposia and making speeches that focus on government issues. At the time of her retirement from the Navy, Dr. Hopper was assigned to the Naval Data Automation Command. Much of her military service had been devoted to keeping the Navy on the leading edge of computing technology. Since 1952, she has published more than 50 papers and articles on computer software and programming languages. She is a leader in the development of the COBOL computer language, helped to program the UNIVAC-1, the first commercial large-scale electronic computer, and has taught at several colleges and universities. More than 40 colleges and universities have bestowed honorary degrees on Admiral Hopper, and her entry in Who's Who takes 34 lines to record her accomplishments. Through anecdotes and reminiscences based upon years in the Navy and as a pioneer in the field of computer technology, Grace shares her lessons learned and lends us some of her valuable insights.
For the last umpteen years, I have been frequently told that I live in a world of change. Well, change it sure is. I met Mark I on the 2nd of July, 1944. And Mark I did an addition in 300 milliseconds. 300 thousandths of a second. I would remind you that at the time she was the most remarkable thing that man had ever built. Absolutely just super terrific. However, we built more computers during World War II. The Navy built Hurricane, Typhoon, Zephyr, and started work on Whirlwind. But not until 1951 could you go out and buy a commercial electronic computer. And that was the year old UNIVAC-1 came out. And it did an addition in 282 microseconds. And we were going 1,000 times faster. That's change. We didn't stop there. By 1964, out came the first of the CDC 6400s, and it did an addition in 300 nanoseconds. Another 1,000 times faster. Now, of course, being interested in the future, I have to draw the next line. 19 question mark. Do we need a computer, XYZ computer, that adds in 300 picoseconds? Another 1,000 times. The answer is yes, we sure need that computer, and we need it very badly. I can think of two major applications for which we need it. One is the weather. Obviously, we need better long-term weather forecasts. The first thing they told us last night at National Airport was a 45-minute delay in landing at Boston, so they kept us on the ground. And then they added 25 minutes more onto that. And then when we got up near Boston, they sent us down to do figure eights over Rhode Island. I think we were an hour and a half late getting into Boston last night. Weather forecasts might have helped. So I think the real truth of the matter was they hadn't had that snow-moving equipment out since last winter. And probably half of it didn't work because they hadn't tried it out. The fact remains that we do need far better long-term weather forecasts. The Navy also wants to study those waves that are at the very bottom of the ocean that they just discovered. And they'll need a supercomputer for that. There's another place we're going to need tremendous computer power, and it's one most people don't think about. It's managing water. I wasn't aware of it till it happened to my sister. She lives in northern New Jersey. They had a water shortage, and they limited them to 50 gallons of water apiece a day. And they came around and looked at the water meters and found people that used more than that. Down the city of Norfolk, they ran short of water. Now, Norfolk draws its water from wells, so they decided they'd better drill a couple more wells. And they got awful cagey about it. They drilled them in the corner of the naval base and thought they'd get away with it. But the two new wells were in Suffolk County. So Suffolk County is suing Norfolk County for stealing their groundwater. Down in Florida, they pulled so much water out of the underlying aquifer that they opened sinkholes and dumped houses and cars into them. In Tucson, they pulled so much out of the underlying aquifer that the city's sinking, so every so often it cracks open under buildings and things. In Colorado, the eastern half of the state's dry, the western half has water. So naturally, the people in the eastern half think it'd be a ducky idea to poke a tunnel through the Rockies and get water from the western half. No way are the people in the western half going to give their water to those nasty old people in the eastern half. And it's all in the courts: Colorado, California, New Mexico, Nevada, West Texas. Who can draw how much water from which river and which aquifer? Can you imagine the engineering job it's going to be, the reservoirs and pipelines that'll have to be built, and then the computer system that will ensure that every single resident of the United States gets their fair share of pure water? It's going to be the biggest computer job we've ever tackled. And it's closer than we think, and we haven't paid attention to it. Oh, we're going to need computer power. Change? They told me that first computer was adding in milliseconds. So naturally I said, what's a millisecond? Well, they cheerfully told me it was 1,000th of a second. Well, now, I'd seen a second on a clock, but darned if I could see 1,000th of it. So I fussed and fumed. I wanted somebody to show me a millisecond. And you know, nobody would show me a millisecond? No way. Time went on. Finally, somebody poked a finger on one of my programs and said, hey, you wasted 5 microseconds. And I said, so what? What's a microsecond? Well, they told me it was 1,000,000th of a second. Well, in the first place, I didn't know what a million of anything was. Biggest check I'd ever seen was less than $1,000. I don't know what a million was. If I didn't know what a million was, I didn't know what a millionth was, and I fussed and fumed. Well, before I got any answers, somebody over in the engineering building started talking about nanoseconds. Billionths of a second. I didn't know what a billion was. And between you and me and the gatepost, I don't think most of those men up on the hill in Washington do either. And if you don't know what a billion is, how on earth do you know what a billionth is? And I kept on fussing and fuming. Finally, one day, in total desperation, I called over to the engineering building, and I said, please cut off a nanosecond and send it over to me. And I brought you all some today. I don't think I have enough for all of you, but it seems that people get tired of making nanoseconds for me, and I can only recommend that you liberate some wire and make your own nanoseconds. To get the length of a nanosecond, you have to start with the velocity of light. Now, the velocity of light in space is 186,000 plus miles per second. So a second up here would be 186,000 miles. That's how far light or electricity will travel in space at the velocity of light. Well, that means a millisecond, then, is 186 miles, 1,000th of that. That means that a microsecond is 0.186 miles, which is about 984 feet. That means that a nanosecond is 1,000th of that, which turns out to be 11.78 inches. And a picosecond, whoops, 0.001 inches. Well, when I asked for a nanosecond, what I wanted was a piece of wire which would represent the maximum distance that light or electricity could travel in a billionth of a second. And that's what these are. I wish I had more of them for you, but maybe those in front can get them, and maybe the rest of you can liberate some wire and make some nanoseconds. You can tell that this was liberated from AT&T. It may have been Chesapeake and Potomac Telephone Company. 11.78 inches, the maximum distance that light or electricity can travel in a billionth of a second. Now, if you'll make yourself one, you'll find they're very useful, because every so often you'll have to explain to somebody why two pieces of equipment have to be close together. And this is a wonderful way of showing them the loss of time between pieces of equipment. Of course, the best use I ever made of it was An admiral wanted to know why it took so damn long to send a message by a satellite. And I had to point out to him that between here and the satellite, there were a very large number of nanoseconds. You can really explain things to people if you have a handy nanosecond. Now, of course, a picosecond is going to be 1,000th of that. I can tell you how to get some picoseconds. The people at Merrimack, the DEC people at Merrimack are going to make me some. If you go to Wendy's or McDonald's, you'll find they have little packets of picoseconds. Of course, it happens they say pepper on them, but they're really picoseconds. So you can probably liberate for yourself a small packet of picoseconds so you can explain those to people. They're going to make me some of these little clear envelopes, and they're going to put digital equipment picoseconds on it. Then I'll have them to hand out to people, which will be very helpful. And this is what we've got to worry about. We've got to begin to think in terms of time, which is based on nanoseconds and picoseconds. And we darn well better know what a nanosecond is and recognize how very, very short it is and how much time we can lose between pieces of equipment. Of course, our engineers are well aware of it, but not all of our customers and other people are. And it's high time we began to give people nanoseconds and picoseconds and let them get to understand these things that we're facing. And that certainly is a world of change, to go from seconds, milliseconds in that first computer, to the nanoseconds of today's computers and the picoseconds of the future. It still isn't going to be enough to build those big computers. We still need more computer power. Now, there's an example I've always used to explain to people why they needed computers to do computer power. Back in the early days of this country, when they moved heavy objects around, they didn't have any big tractors, they didn't have any big cranes. They used oxen. And when they got a great big log down on the ground and one ox couldn't budge the darn thing, they did not try to grow a bigger ox. They used 2 oxen. And I think they're trying to tell us something. And that is that when you need greater computer power, the answer is not get a bigger computer, it's get another computer. And that the future lies in building systems of computers. And again, the flow of information backs that up. It's systems of computers that we will build in the future. Of course, the biggest single system of computers I know of so far is the one at NASA Goddard. It consists of 128 by 128 processors, 16,384 processors all in one system. And it's specially built. It was built to scan the Landsat data, and it tracks across the desert and looks for changes in the color of the desert that might mean oil underneath, or it tracks the locusts on a crop. But it was built for the Landsat data. I think that many of our future supercomputers will not be general purpose computers. That weather computer, the water computers, those are going to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on a particular problem. The computer should be built for that problem. I'd gather me together a group of young engineers and programmers who knew the problem, knew what data they had, knew what answers they wanted, and let them go ahead and define a computer to do that particular job. After all, the cost of custom chips is rapidly coming down, and I think instead of general purpose supercomputers, we should be thinking in terms of special purpose supercomputers, when they're going to be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we will need auxiliary pieces of equipment to go with those. It's an amazing thing to realize that back in 1945, Commander Howard Hathaway Aiken predicted that someday he would have a computer in a shoebox. That's happened. And he also predicted that we would build auxiliary pieces of equipment. And this is something we're only just beginning to recognize. We've been filling up our main memories of our big computers with a great deal of glee. And I think it's largely because the programmers and the engineers have stopped talking to each other. They used to be in the same building. Now they're in different buildings and maybe even in different towns. And they don't ever get to talk to each other. You have your main memory. What do you do? Stuff a whole operating system into it. What's the next thing you stuff in? A database management system. Then an I/O system, taking away all the space that I need to do my application. I can see the day when that operating system will be out, all of it will be out on a chip. The database management system will be an independent database machine. The I/O will be out on a chip or a separate machine that manages all the protocols and all those relationships of things coming in. And we've got to begin to think of not only of systems of computers, but systems of pieces of the computers that communicate, and clear that main memory from my applications, which is, after all, the only reason I wanted the darn thing to begin with. And I think all too often we've thought too much about the hardware and software, and we've completely failed to recognize that they're only the tools with which we manage the data and the information, and they should be primary, the first things we think of. So it's going to be a world of change. Things are going to keep happening. And it'll be a world of information management. We certainly got change there, going from milliseconds to picoseconds. How does change come about? Well, probably the most serious block to change are those people who say, but we've always done it that way. That is a forbidden phrase in my office, and in order to emphasize the fact, I keep a clock which operates entirely counterclockwise. You can buy a mail order, you know where they get them from, and it goes entirely counterclockwise, tells perfectly good time. The first day people meet it, they can't tell time. By the second day, they discover what used to be 10 of is now 10 after, and they can tell time again. You know, it's normally not until the third day that they recognize that there was never any reason why clocks had to run clockwise. They could just as well have run counterclockwise. We've got to get rid of that phrase. In fact, I'll give you each a very, very small gift. I'll promise you something. If during the next 12 months, any one of you says, but we've always done it that way, I will instantly materialize beside you and I will haunt you. I will haunt you for 24 hours. And I know it works because I've already had 100 letters from people thanking me for haunting them. We've got to think future. We've got to accept change. We've got to move into that future. And believe me, it's coming faster than we recognize. Faster than certain large corporations recognize who couldn't change their minds. I look to our youngsters. I look to our youngsters to bring those changes about, at least in the Navy. There was a young lieutenant, junior grade, was ordered to a very small ship, and the Navy thought it was much too small to have a computer for admin. So he took his own computer board with him. He very quickly got all the files in his computer. He was getting all the reports out on time, doing a perfectly marvelous job. When he was transferred, the captain had to buy his computer because the ship wouldn't run without it anymore. Then there was the young commander of a squadron. He was told to take his squadron out to an aircraft carrier. He found that when he did, he'd have to leave the maintenance records of his planes, this was 5 years ago, ashore in the Naval Air Rework Facility. This didn't suit him at all. He wanted the maintenance records of his planes with him. So he went out and bought an Apple computer. He went over to the NARF, made friends with an ensign and a DP. A DP is a programmer. And he liberated, borrowed, stole his maintenance records out of the NARF and into his Apple. He got a case for it and put it in the space behind his seat and flew off to the carrier with all of his maintenance records and a computer with which to update them. It was highly successful. So he came back and told about it at the Department of Defense Computer Institute. And somebody looked at him and said, "Are you supposed to do that?" And he said, "I didn't ask." That brings me to the most important piece of advice that I can give to anybody. And it was the first piece of advice given to me when I left midshipman school. If it's a good idea, in my case, if it was for the good of the ships at sea, go ahead and do it. It is much easier to apologize than it is to get permission. So I'm trying to lead everybody astray into the future. Go ahead and do things. You can always apologize later. And if you're a little afraid of taking risks like that, I can even give you a motto. A ship in port is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. And I want you to all be good ships and sail out to sea and do the new things and accept the new concepts and move into the future, because it's coming faster than we realize. Incidentally, when he came back and told about it, NavAir thought maybe this was a good idea, so they set up a committee. The committee spawned 3 committees, and 4 years later they gave the command pilots computers with which to monitor the maintenance of their planes. But somebody had to go ahead and do it to begin with and get the evidence that it would work. There was another case of a young electronics technician, first class, out in the Pacific Fleet. He built a computer aboard ship. Well, the PR man of his ship thought this was out of this world, so he took a picture of the sailor and his computer and he put it in Navy Times, where Rear Admiral Peter Cullen saw it. So he decided it'd be a nice idea to write a letter to the sailor and congratulate him. And knowing how long it would take a Navy letter to get from Washington out to a ship at sea, he put a stamp on it and sent it direct by U.S. mail. Well, the sailor decided if the Admiral could write him direct, he could write the Admiral direct, so he did. And he thanked the Admiral for his letter. He pointed out he didn't know admirals read Navy Times, but he was sure glad they did. He then went on for 10 pages, single-spaced, and told the Admiral in complete detail exactly what was wrong with the computers in the Pacific Fleet and what ought to be done about it. Probably the best survey we'd ever seen. So the Admiral reached out his hand and said, see, I guess he was an ET-1 then, ET-1 Slater, Pacific Fleet to Norfolk. He gave him a couple more ETs and some DPs and told him to go ahead and build a computer. Gave him a small amount of money. They put it together out of off-the-shelf components, real nice micro with database and everything. So they set him up as a microcomputer evaluation group. Well, they liberated, borrowed, and otherwise acquired microcomputers and microcomputer software. So pretty soon they knew an awful lot about microcomputers. This was about 6 years ago. Finally, they decided they should tell the rest of the Navy about microcomputers. So they'd better put on a seminar. Now, to put a seminar in the Navy, you have to go all the way to the top of the Navy and get permission and money and back down again. They didn't bother with any of that. With their own funds, they put a down payment on a local hall. Then they called all the manufacturers of microcomputers and said, for $200, we'll let you exhibit your equipment, and you'd better be there. They sort of implied they wouldn't buy the stuff otherwise, but they didn't say that because that would be illegal. They thought they might get 100 people. They had 500. A year later, they decided to inform the West Coast. They ran it again at Monterey. This time they had 800 people. The next year, the third year, it came out fully recognized. The Admiral opened it at Virginia Beach. They had well over 1,000 people. Next year it was 2,000. This last year it was well over 2,500 people. Probably the best seminar there is on microcomputers, and it'll be held again in May at Virginia Beach. Well, that was fine. They were beginning to reach some of the people in the Navy and tell them about microcomputers. But there were a lot of people that couldn't get there. They couldn't get the travel money or the fees and so on, and they decided they had to do something about all those people because they needed to know about microcomputers. So they decided to start a magazine. Now, if you think it's easy to start a seminar, try starting a magazine. All the way to the top of the Navy, all the way to the top of the Department of Defense, all the way to the top of the Federal Office of Personnel Management and back down again, which can take you 2 or 3 years. They didn't bother with any of that. They did just one thing legally. They got permission from Nabisco to use the title of their magazine. It's Chips Ahoy. And it's probably the best thing out on microcomputers. Well, there's one thing you do have to be careful of in this go ahead and do it. There's always a line out here, and that line represents what your boss will believe at a given moment in time. And if you step over the line, you don't get the budget. So you have to be very careful of that line. Go as close to it as you can, but don't step over it. I find that we have a very bad habit of underestimating our young people. The media, TV, radio, magazines, newspapers, only tell us about the 20% that are no good. They never tell us about the 80% who are the brightest, the healthiest, the most eager to learn that we've ever had in this history of this country. I talked at a high school out in Fairfax, Virginia this last Monday. Sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Brightest bunch of youngsters. They were terrific. Of course, I know they're the healthiest because they've had vitamin pills all their lives long. I had to eat tablespoons full of emulsified cod liver oil. They're out there. Now, I grant you, they're not along the two coasts and they're not in the big cities. They're out in the country. They're in North Dakota, South Dakota, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, northern New England. They're in central Pennsylvania, central New York State. They're in Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, southern Illinois, southern Ohio, Iowa, West Texas. They're out there, the brightest young people we've ever had. And they are looking for something. And the thing that they're looking for is that positive leadership. I don't know where we lost it after World War II. Somehow we went overboard. Not alone the armed forces, everybody did. Everything could be done by management. And we forgot about leadership. As a matter of fact, Washington, as you probably well know, is a hotbed of MBAs and lawyers. And they know everything. We forgot about leadership. We forgot the two-way street. The second thing I was taught when I left midshipman school. They said, your primary job will be to provide leadership. And leadership is a two-way street. It's loyalty up and loyalty down. Respect for your superior. Keep him informed. Make suggestions. Superior, take care of your crew. For instance, in my case, I decided that every member of the crew should be able to get on their feet and give a report and not say, you know. So I put a little square box on each desk with a slot in it. If they said, you know, during a report, they had to put a quarter in. We didn't take the quarters, but it tied up their capital. And you'd be surprised how fast they learned not to say, you know. Then when they could give a report and not say, you know, there was a reward. When I was invited to give a presentation for an admiral or somebody, I would arrive with my whole crew strung out after me. And then instead of me giving the report, I would introduce them one by one to give the report on their part of the work. And I swear I watched those young'uns grow 2 inches when an admiral said, well done. How often do we remember to give praise when praise is due? How often do we say, well done, thank you, that was a good job? That's part of leadership too, and we need it back again and need it badly. One outfit never lost it. That was the Marines. And I think if I had a Marine here beside me, what he would say would be, when the going gets rough, you cannot manage a man into combat. You must lead him. And he might add, you manage things. You lead people. We need that back not only in the armed forces, we need it in all of government, and we need it in industry. And I think we're beginning to see the turnaround, because that's what those youngsters are looking for. They're looking for that positive leadership into the future. When I spoke to those youngsters on Monday, I reminded them that they were a good thing, and that in not too many years ahead, they were the future. They were going to have to take charge of this country and run it. I think nobody had told them they were a good thing. I think we've got to tell our young people they are a good thing. We've got to provide for them that positive leadership. And no matter what job you're doing, where you're doing it, you must provide that leadership for those who are following after you, so they will learn it and pass it on to those who come in the future. Those young people are the future. The leadership we provide for them will be the leadership they will pass on. And Lord knows, this country needs it and needs it very badly. And it's high time we began to get working at it and remembering what the Marines said about it. I'm tremendously proud of what those youngsters accomplished. They've done wonderful things. For myself, I've received most of the honors that are given to anyone in the computer industry. And each time I've received one, I've thanked them. And I've told them something I'd like to repeat to you. I have already received the highest award I'll ever receive, no matter how long I live, no matter how many more jobs I may have. And that has been the privilege and the responsibility of serving very proudly in the United States Navy. Thank you for being wonderful listeners.
Now please fast forward On side 2, you'll hear Chick Shue, Vice President of U.S. Sales. Welcome back. We are bringing you the major portions of 2 keynote speeches delivered at a recent internal IDECUS. On side 1, you heard retired Admiral Grace Hopper, who now holds a senior consulting position with Digital. On this side of the tape, you'll hear Chick Shue. Despite the snow and foul weather experienced in the Northeast that day, Chick Shue arrived to deliver his keynote message to those who also braved the weather to attend internal IDECUS. As Vice President of U.S. Sales, Chick is responsible for managing all U.S. sales areas, as well as Digital's small business activities. Before coming to Digital, Chick worked for I.E. DuPont, selling computer magnetic tape in the Southeast. He joined Digital in the Philadelphia district in 1970 as a sales representative, selling PDP-8s and PDP-11s to industrial, commercial, and educational markets. Prior to assuming his current position, Chick held several positions at Digital, including Regional Sales Manager of the Mid-Atlantic region, Area Manager for the Northeast area, and Vice President of the Northeast area states. He was named to his present position in October 1985. For the next 20 minutes, Chick discusses the excitement and honor of working for Digital, especially in these times of favorable press coverage, from the Wall Street Journal to Fortune magazine. He speaks of the field vision, Digital's goals, Digital's partners, and Digital's customers.
Thank you very much. It is indeed a literal pleasure to be here. And I do appreciate the effort that you've made to try to be with us this morning. I've only been in New England now going on 4 years, and I'm not quite as crazy as all of you New Englanders are. In my hometown of Philadelphia, we would have canceled the month if we had a snowstorm like the one we had last evening. But as it turns out, all we do in New England is delay IDECUS for 1 hour. So that's quite a contrast. Hasn't it been grand to be with Digital these past 12 months? We have been firing on all cylinders like a finely tuned engine, and it has been fun. Across the company, across the geographies, across all functions, engineering, manufacturing, marketing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We just seem to be getting it together. And it's been a very, very great time. It's been especially fun to be in sales this past year. We have the privilege of being your representative, the company's representative in front of customers, and it indeed has been a privilege this past year. Our slogan, Digital Has It Now, has become more than a slogan. Our customers believe it. They have business problems that won't wait, so they're not waiting. The primary other vendor in this business is telling them to wait. And the good news is they're not waiting. And it's attributed to a lot of growth and performance, and you've seen a lot of that. And hasn't the PR been fantastic? From the front page of the Wall Street Journal to the cover of Fortune magazine. It's been generating tremendous, tremendous interest. Ken said we would recognize advertising when we saw it. In his genius, wasn't he right? And it's been the best kind of advertising. It's been free. The media and Wall Street has also been telling our story. It's been great to get that kind of help. The window of opportunity is an opportunity to participate in broad markets, more than we've ever participated before. So for the next 15 to 20 minutes, I want to share with you several topics, and let me list them for you. The field vision, what our goals are, what some of our key strategies and plans are. more on this window of opportunity, how we see it in the field, share some of that with you, and follow on to some of the remarks that perhaps you heard from Bell yesterday. A perspective on the Virginia Road Project, personal perspective. And finally, IDECUS, how you can help and how you do help. And I'd like to share that with you this morning as well. So a healthy agenda, I think it'll take about 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for some questions and answers and let you get on with the other good activities of the day. At the U.S. field level, we've embraced the corporate goals. You've heard about one this, one that, and one this. One company, one plan, one strategy. And so we adopted 3 ones. Our mega goals in the U.S. field organization across all functions has been to be the #1 vendor to our customers, naturally, measured by surveys, our own and independent surveys. The next #1 is to be the #1 investment to our investors, obviously, as measured by constant predictable results, improving trend year after year after year. And the final #1 is to be the #1 employer to our employees, measured by a lot of things, certainly the attraction of good people and holding on to them. What's sales doing about this? To participate in a #1 strategy, the sales goal is, in fact, to be the best sales organization in the world. And briefly, to me, that means satisfying customers first. Take care of those that took care of us. Grow from there. Returning the highest yields in the industry. We have to do that. We're darn close to that now, but we do not enjoy higher yields than our friends in Armonk. They enjoy the highest yields in the industry, the best that we can determine. And the other measure is winning new business, new clients. So they're the 3 measures. How do we intend to do a lot of this? I'll share with you a few of the key programs and strategies that the sales organization and the field organization specifically is focusing on. The first strategy is called a digital named account strategy. What this means is approximately less than 1,000 accounts really do represent the majority of our U.S. business opportunity. We have been setting out to identify these accounts. We've targeted sales and services teams on these accounts. We want to increase our revenue and market share in these accounts. We have on average less than 10% share in these accounts. Here we are, the 2nd largest legitimate computer company in the business, and yet less than 10% share on average. This is a tremendous opportunity. And as you might expect, inside the next 4 to 5 years, our intention is to double our share in these accounts, focusing further on a smaller set of accounts, approximately 200 to 300. We are focusing specific resources by application in these larger sets of opportunities. These customers are looking for 1 or 2 system suppliers. An overused word, but yes, a partner. The vendor of choice. Not 10% going to 20%, but 51%. And that's our goal over the next 5 years in that set of accounts. We are linked, as you would expect us to be, to industry marketing to help select these accounts. We are certainly linked with applications marketing to, in fact, to zero in on the applications that offer us the greatest opportunity and the highest probability of success. I must insert here a caution. I call it the Tobin Rule caution. Some of you may have heard me use it before. And the Tobin Rule goes like this. And it's a caution on the arrogance of a named account strategy. Because isn't it arrogant to try to predict who your best customers are going to be? And so the caution to keep everybody on their toes goes like this. In 1957, Ken Olson was in the mill, and he was looking for a food supplier to supply just 12 hot lunches a day. And so the first 5 calls he made to a food supplier, they said, digital, let's see. You are not on our named account list. The 6th call to Tobin's, well, the rest is history. Tobin's delivers somewhere between 40 and 50,000 hot meals a day to Digital Equipment Corporation, an unnamed account in 1957. We have an all-channel strategy. We are selling more and more of the solution to our customers. To do that, we need to embrace partners in many dimensions. And through this partnership, through this third-party relationship and cooperation, we'll be targeting more applications, those that we do not choose to invest in directly. And you've heard about some of those strategies through our cooperative marketing partners, who are primarily software suppliers, application suppliers, through our systems cooperative marketing partners, who in fact add systems to the software, to our authorized distributors, who indeed enable us to sell through them and offer us a channel of distribution to a smaller client, the kind of client that is very difficult to reach cost effectively. Simply, we'll be selling with, to, and through our partners. It is an all-channel strategy that we have. In the U.S., we've also focused on sales selling services. It is the U.S. sales organization that's responsible for selling all of Digital's products and services. Supported, to be sure, every employee helps us sell all Digital product and services, but yet integrated and focused through the account and territory representative, so that we integrate services up front in the sale, early on, before we make the sale. And lastly, but certainly our primary goal has been customer satisfaction. In particular, it's been our number one goal: satisfy customers, because satisfied customers do repeat business. I want to share some of what we've learned about service these days. I'm talking about big S service, service with a capital S. We're beyond the point of logistics, right person, right spare, right place, right time. That's no longer the industry's definition of service. And thank God we do that very, very well today. But that's small S service. Big S service can be defined a number of ways. Let me share a few of my favorite definitions to you. One customer defines service this way: we want Digital Equipment Corporation to fill the void between shipment and successful ROI on our application. Sounds like seamless service, to match a seamless product strategy. Service where you don't see the edges of one geography versus another. Services where you don't see the edge of one function versus another. That's what our customers are looking for. And we have to supply it if we want to enjoy preferred vendor status in any account. And we do not have big S service today. We're working very hard to do it, but we have to face that reality, and we have to be better at it. The sales organization is developing high-quality, long-term relationships with our customers. We are extending what has been working the last 6 to 10 years in our corporate account program. Admittedly, it's been a limited program. Until about 6 to 9 months ago, there were 26 clients in that program. If you look again 2 months from now, there will be 100 clients in that program. It's special service, additional service. We have to service everyone well, but our biggest clients, in fact, are more demanding. So you'll see us extend what we've learned about that relationship building to the digital named account strategy. Another example of a program in that area you may have heard something about is called the Executive Partnership Program. We have connected 40 digital vice presidents with these approximately 100 corporate accounts. Connected for a long-term relationship. Not that they would usurp the responsibility of the local account team or the U.S. or the worldwide account team. That's not their job. Their job is to call perhaps once a month and say, are we putting our best foot forward? Their job is to build relationships with clients who are at the same level in their respective companies. Their job is to go the extra mile if somehow all that red tape and bureaucracy that even seeps into a Digital Equipment Corporation gets in the way of closing an opportunity. You'll hear more about that program, and we intend to extend it down even further in the organization as we embrace these 1,000 accounts. Simply put, satisfied customers will be the first customers to look to us for new applications. That's what we want. A little bit more on this window of opportunity. As I mentioned, we do have a window of opportunity. It is a particularly appropriate analogy because a window can move in either direction. Each and every one of you can help align your personal goals to the corporate goals to be the number one in customer satisfaction so that the window moves in the right direction, further open. There's a historical view of digital that we are a very traditional company, selling to engineering and manufacturing, and indeed these markets are growing, and we enjoy participating fully in these markets, and generally we have a leadership share in these markets. To people who could take VAC systems and option catalogs and know the difference between RA81s and 482s, and HSC 50s, and so on and so forth. We love that kind of customer. We'll take more of them and more business. However, the president and executive vice presidents of many of our accounts do not need another HSC 50. He or she is running a business, a big business. They have business needs. Let me list a few of them with you. This is what they want out of their partnership with digital. Access to information, yes, and intelligence. More important, as we climb the hierarchy of data, information, and intelligence. Better management decisions, quicker. Increased productivity. Lower operating costs. Higher profits. Bottom line, today more than ever, a competitive edge against their competition. As an employee of digital and as a customer of DIS in one way or another, do these goals seem reasonable to you? That's what they're buying. Holes instead of drills. And we love to supply drills. And we have to learn that many of our clients don't know, don't care, and don't need to know what VMS stands for. They want a seamless product strategy and a seamless service strategy. Our customer, any customer, prefers to buy a complete solution, and these solutions, as they become more and more complete, are a key to our success. With that, let me talk a little bit about the Virginia Road project. It began as a promise by Bell Cross and his DIS group at the spring 1986 IDECUS Symposium. He offered that Site IS at Virginia Road would implement an integrated technical architecture by the fall symposium, and here we are. A VRO project team was formed to fully implement the technical architecture within 6 months. Those of you that were at Digital's Deck World know that we love to do things quickly. Little sadomasochism, but it does get the point across when we can do things quickly. This team was set up to demonstrate at VRO the digital technical architecture as a highly effective way of using our systems to conduct business. The challenge of the project was to implement the architecture completely, quickly. A complete implementation had not been done prior to that anywhere in the corporation. Bell's group has met the challenge. You're here to learn more about that. The VRO project demonstrates that the implementation can indeed be done, that other groups can now follow suit. It's amazing when the 4-minute mile was broken, how many people found they could run it. The technical architecture is as effective as DIS has been contending. See for yourself. It's exciting. The Virginia Road project is a showcase of the implementation of digital style of computing. I liken it to buying our stock back. You know, it's nice to see the cook eat in her own restaurant. And the VRO project is another example of that. Clear demonstration that digital uses effectively our style of computing. As for IDECUS, here's how you can help, and here's how you have been helping. You have an important role to play in our ability to sell our solutions, in developing the applications for our products, testing them, debugging them, giving us critical feedback on them, demonstrating them to prospects and customers. Extremely important. In my opinion, IDECUS represents a quality adder to digital's business solution. This is as critical to our success as the quality control in engineering and manufacturing. It's that critical. Customer satisfaction is possible only when we sell quality solutions, complete solutions to our customers. The solutions we've found effective in helping digital conduct business. Our satisfaction is directly tied to the customer satisfaction. Each of us is a customer. Each of us can impact our customer's future today by the quality of our use and feedback. And don't we have a diverse set of applications? Practically in every discipline. And aren't we the most critical? Every time we turn on deck mail over the weekend, we tend to forget how far we've come. How important a contribution the use of our own products has become to that AAA report card you're reading about in the press. It's easy to forget, isn't it? It's easy to focus on the whole and not the donut. And that is as it should be, because that's your quality adder. Not to mention, one of the world's, if not the world's, largest network. And aren't we leveraging that? Every time you connect a node, some sales group out there is saying 10,001. It's fun to be in a leadership position when you're selling. And it's fun to represent all of you. You are giving digital the story to tell to our customers. Keep it up. Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this audio presentation of two colorful and distinguished IDECUS keynote speakers, Chick Shue and Admiral Grace Hopper. This tape was produced by Educational Services Sales Training in Littleton, Massachusetts in February 1987. This tape is not to be reproduced without permission of the copyright owner. Copyright 1987 Digital Equipment Corporation. If you know someone who would like to subscribe to the Sales Training audio cassette program, please ask them to contact us through VaxMail, Wisdom::Cassettes, or Deck Mail, Cassettes@LJO. To contact our subscription desk by phone, dial DTN 226-2071 or area code 617-486-2071.